baby, I like to roll. Yeah, baby, I like to roll.
This is the Ezra Walk and Talk, and I had teased this title. I call it Dave Benavidez, Canelo, and Zion Williamson. And the Zion Williamson threw everyone for, they just threw him off. They didn't know how that would correlate or how that made sense or what the hell this was going to be about. But I think it's pretty simple. And if you know anything about Zion Williamson, what's happening with him right now, and if you don't Google it, I'm not going to get into it. But if you know what's going on with Zion Williamson's life, right now, and you see people, and everyone has a comment on it, and everyone has an opinion, and everybody wants to say, oh, well, he's a fool, he's an idiot, he shouldn't have been doing that, should have been smarter. I wouldn't have done that. Everybody's saying, I wouldn't have done that. Someone's got to teach him, how to handle himself and all those things. And while those opinions and thoughts are correct, right, and I agree with that, but to say, oh, I wouldn't have done that is a step too far, because most people in this world have never experienced what Zion Williams has experienced. Zion Williamson is in the snap of a finger like that. Life has turned into something that he could never prepare for. There's something that he had never experienced before. He has wealth. He has opportunity. He's in a whole different class system than he was before. In an instant. And all it took was just getting drafted in the NBA. And he did at a very young age, right? In his early 20s. So, for people to say, oh, I wouldn't have done that, there's just no way to back up that he wouldn't have done this mistake. He wouldn't have made these mistakes. He wouldn't have fallen in the same traps that Zion Williamson fallen. Because you've not experienced it. You have not been in his shoes, right? You haven't been in those situations to say that you never do that. So, while maybe the criticism is fair, but to say that you wouldn't have done it, or, you would be smart in that situation, that's not fair, because you don't know and you can't prove it. Now, how does that correlate with anything with Canelo or Dave Benavidez? And hell, I'm still going to throw in Triple G in this. David Benavidez is the young upcoming lion at 168 pounds. He's the guy that a lot of people favor to dethrone Canelo Alvarez. Now, Canelo Alvarez has been in no hurry to fight Dave Benavidez. Canelo Alvarez has said things like, Dave Benavidez has to earn it. What has he done? What has he done to fight me, right? And he's taken other fights. Now, debatable whether some of those fights were actually tougher than Dave Benavidez, but he's taken other fights. And people, and fans especially Dave Benavidez, are pissed about this, because they feel that Canelo Alvarez isn't fighting the best opponents possible. He's not fighting the young guys, the hungry guys, the guys that people feel could put it on him, because he's weighing risk to reward. And he's not defending his belt because he knows that Dave Benavidez is the toughest guy out there. And he doesn't want to risk losing Dave Benavidez. So people feel like he's kind of ducking Dave Benavidez. And the reason why Canelo could do this, and is why people get frustrated with him, is because he is the A-side. He is the superstar. He is the guy where all the money is. So he can kind of make other things happen to not fight Dave Benavidez. And fans of Dave Benavidez feel like he's the actual real fighter right now. He's not the celebrity. He's the guy that's willing to fight anyone, right? He just beat Caleb Plant. He's the guy that's beating all the, who'll beat all the guys, the contenders, and the real challenges at 168. And Canelo is just the guy that's at top and is famous and getting big paydays, right? But an interesting thing happened. Is David Benavidez now, who just beat Caleb Plant in a main event and a pay-per-view, now has a little bit of A-side to him, right? He has a little bit of power, a little bit of juice. And now there's a guy, just like Dave Benavidez is Canelo, that's coming up to fight Dave Benavidez. And that's David Morrell. And David Morrell is even less famous than Dave Benavidez is compared to Canelo, right? What Dave Benavidez was to Canelo, Morrell's even farther gap of separation as far as name power. But he's considered a very tough challenge. And a lot of people would favor David Morrell to even beat David Benavidez. So it's very high risk and very low reward. And all the things that people accuse Canelo of, all the things that people say Canelo was doing, and all the things that David Benavidez was the opposite of, well, now that he's in the opportunity to have a little power, to have a little bit of name, have a little bit of juice, he's going to do to David Morrell. He came out right away and said, and his own promoter said that the fight was done. Came out right away and said, there is no deal for this fight. I'd rather fight Jaime Munguia than fight David Morrell. And now, David Benavidez, who now has this power, now has opportunity, is turning into everything that his fans said Canelo was. Now, I could be proven wrong. David Benavidez could just announce within a week, 2 weeks, that he is going to fight Morrell. And he will, to me, at that point, proven that he is not a guy that's about nonsense, and he is a guy who truly believes he's the best and is truly willing to fight the guys that think they're the best, right? He's really, truly willing to fight any of the guys that are the challenge. But if he isn't, then he turns into everything that people were negative about Canelo to him about. Another example of this was Triple G. Triple G was coming up, beating all the contenders, all things, and he wanted to fight a big name, right? He was looking for a Canelo who wasn't even in his weight class below. And people were saying, oh, Canelo doesn't want anything to do with Triple G. Triple G's actual, these guys, because they're in a position where they have to fight everyone, or they have to fight whoever comes, right, the contenders in their point, because they don't have the fame, they don't have the power, they don't have that to control the what's going on in their situation. People say, oh, these guys are a real fighter. He's going to fight everyone. He actually will take on the tough challenge. And Canelo, he's going to pick and choose, right? And Triple G's not like that. Then Triple G fights Canelo. He gets the rub, gets 2 fights, gets a big deal with his own. And Triple G, to me, turns into worse than Canelo. He doesn't literally fight anyone. He fights guys that are no threat to him. There's absolutely no risk. And he continues to fight these guys. And he doesn't fight guys like Andrade. He doesn't fight guys like Charlo. He doesn't fight guys like Munguia. He doesn't fight really anyone. And he turns into everything, and to me, worse than what they said Canelo was. Because we can say all these things of what these fighters are, but until they are in that position, you do not know who they will become. And a lot of guys, when have some power, when have some pull, when have some juice, wield it. There's very few guys that don't wield their power to put themselves in position to favorable matchups, to put themselves in position to keep their career going, and to take as less risk as possible. Hell, honestly, of the guys right now, the guys that do that, I say, in a way, Devin Haney, are guys that have power, they have juice, they have the ability to do things, and they still make a way to go fight the toughest guys. You know, another guy that say do that, and he just lost, right? But he still has some power. He still has some juice. You know, Ryan Garcia forced his way to fight Tank Davis. And he's in a lawsuit, really, because of everything that was forced to make that happen. Not until you are in that position can you say, oh, I wouldn't do that. Because you'll be very surprised on who would do it once they are in that position. Deuces.